right, welcome to another Pro Football Doc Sports Injury Central podcast. A special one today for a couple of reasons. Yes, it's NFL schedule release. Yes, we have a special guest, Matt Maiocco from San Francisco 49ers reporter, who I know very well and is very knowledgeable. But also, this is actually, Matt, the very first podcast I've ever done from surgery. I've done a lot of guest segment hits, but usually I plan the podcast for the office and otherwise. So we're good. Patients, not in the room yet, and nobody's waiting on the table with anesthesia. But our next shoulder patient is live in the room. And I don't think in the background we can see anything that's a HIPAA violation. And I don't think you'll see any blood or guts or gore. It is a shoulder surgery, but no, it's not. This one is not a ulnar collateral ligament Tommy John surgery. But welcome to the show, Matt.
Yeah, I think I've said the word ulnar collateral more times in the past. What's it been now, like 5 or 6 months, than I did ever before. Covering football, that's not an injury that we often talk about, but we do as it pertains to Brock Purdy, that's for sure.
Yeah, so it's interesting. Have people generally now accepted, and we talked about this at Radio Row, have people now generally accepted this is surgery on the Tommy John ligament? It may not be traditional Tommy John reconstruction surgery, but Tommy John ligament and ulnar collateral ligament in the elbow, medial collateral ligament, are essentially synonymous.
Well, I think, Dr. Chow, we're not, I don't think people are calling it the Tommy John, so I guess if your question is, are we talking about it in terms of Tommy John? No, because it as I understand it, and of course you're the expert on this, the internal brace does allow for a quicker recovery time. So it isn't the full scale reconstruction. It's using the same ligament. And again, I'm talking to somebody who knows far more about this than me, but as I understand it, a lot of times, when it's a baseball pitcher, it's a repetitive injury. And by the time that ligament goes, it's frayed and it's not in workable condition. With a football player, and such was the case with Brock Purdy when he got injured, throwing the football and Hassan Reddick hitting him, and there was all that trauma on that ligament, it basically snapped or tore, and it wasn't frayed though, so it was repairable, so it could just be reconnected.
You said it very, very well. The only mild modification I would make to what you're saying is you're absolutely right. The baseball pitcher, it's a pair of pants or denim that is frayed over time. The blue jeans become white and see-through, and then there's a hole. Now, of course, that's fashionable and sells for more money, but you get the analogy. Versus Brock Purdy it got ripped on barbed wire, the denim. The fabric is still good.
And the tear is clean.
Correct. It's not an attenuated degenerative tear. Look, most baseball pitchers who end up with Tommy John, you watch their final pitch and it's not extraordinary. It's just the straw that breaks the camel's back. Whereas Brock Purdy in game, and we talked about it at SIC Score, like this is an ulnar collateral ligament tear. I was watching the game with some friends and I said, he's not coming back. And all of a sudden he comes back and people are like, oh, you're wrong. I'm like, yeah, but he's running the ball on 3rd and 13. He can't throw the ball. Now, because it's a repair, not a reconstruction, that's where people say it's not Tommy John traditional surgery, but it is the Tommy John ligaments, but it's a repair to the same ligament. The only modification I make is I'm not sure how much difference the internal brace makes or not. It's a proprietary product. Other companies have it. It's a very catchy name, internal brace, right? But the reality is ligament to bone healing is much quicker than a graft becoming a ligament over time. A graft taking, that's where you hear 12 months, 18 months for the reconstruction. This is a primary repair with or without the internal brace. The ligament heals more quickly. So that's
That's the positive, right?
Yes,
I mean,
that's the positive news. And so I think whether it's the agent or the team or whatever, they've done a masterful job of trying to control the narrative and not mention the words Tommy John because it scares people. And they just use the other term, and which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that, as we discussed down at the Super Bowl. And kind of as we discussed, he hadn't even had surgery at that point in time, and yet they were saying he's ready for training camp. And we were talking on your show about how I'm not saying he can't be ready week 1, but there certainly is question marks. He hasn't had the surgery. It's like saying, the 49ers had a great draft before they even picked. And now after surgery, it's like the 49ers had a great draft and nobody's played a game yet, right? I mean, how do you really know that? And it's not the perfect analogy for the 49ers because they didn't have a lot of draft picks, right? Because of the trade, but you get what I'm saying. And so now there's a lot of talk out there, and there was a lot of commentary I saw that he'll be able to start lobbing a ball at 3 months. And then the headlines were he can throw at 3 months. He'll be ready for the season.
Yeah.
Lobbing a ball is different than throwing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and their plan is, and this is, I think everything. It's kind of funny, Dr. Chow, because John Lynch is kind of the eternal optimist, and he's like, hey, he's on path. We're encouraged. He could be ready week 1, and then Kyle Shanahan is kind of the opposite. I think it's why they work so well together. Kyle Shanahan's like, we don't know if we're going to have him for the first 4 weeks of the season, and so you have this kind of these two guys who kind of counterbalance each other. But I mean, just to give you a quick idea of what, or give your listeners and viewers a quick idea of what their expected, anticipated, I would say hoped for time frame is, the surgery took place on March 10th, and it was delayed about, I think, not quite 2 weeks, but it was delayed right around 10 days, I think, because Dr. Keith Meister, who's the orthopedic surgeon of the Texas Rangers, said that he gets his best results when all the swelling is gone. And at that point, the swelling hadn't been gone. So they waited, kind of pumped the brakes on that surgery. They waited a couple weeks. But the idea was, after he had the surgery on March 10th, it would take 3 months of very light rehab, physical therapy, to put himself, to have the healing process take place and put himself in a position where, as you mentioned, he could begin throwing a football. And by throwing a football, we mean like teaching a 2-year-old how to catch a ball, that kind of lobbing. And then from that point, it's a 3-month ramp up to, again, if everything goes well, there are no setbacks, him being what they consider 100%. Again, is that optimistic? Is it reasonable? We don't know. But if that 6-month time frame, 3 months to get to the point where you can start throwing a football, then 3 months after you start throwing a football to get to the point where you're 100%, now we're talking about 6 months. Where does that put you? September 10th. When does the NFL season, regular season, begin? September 10th. So that's the kind of needle that they're threading in order to even suggest that Brock Purdy will be available to play quarterback for the 49ers in their opening game of the season.
Yeah, and this is where we said it's possible, but far from a guarantee. And that's where I've said from the get-go. Now, I love John Lynch. I actually know him reasonably. I mean, San Diego guy, right? So never. And the one thing I got to shout out to your coach, he may sound pessimistic. I deal a lot in coach speak, Matt, and I would actually say honest. I've actually not caught Kyle Shanahan in a coach speak fib yet. There are times where it doesn't go as he says, but that happens in life. I've pretty much at Sports Injury Central caught every other coach and or GM in the league in coach speak. I mean, we know New England, questionable. Actually, Bill Belichick never does coach speak. He just doesn't speak. No.
Dr. Chow, there was an instance last year where I asked him about a certain player, and this was kind of off to the side, so I don't want to reveal who the player was. Sure. But He did tell me that, this was kind of, middle of the season. This guy had been kind of battling some injuries. And I said, do you expect to have this guy back this season? And, the company line had always been, he was on IR, but, they were keeping that door open for him to return. And his honest answer was, he goes, we might, but I'm not banking on it. I'm not figuring on him coming back, but they keep telling me that he has a chance to be back. Well, that player did come back, but it kind of tells you that, in his, he's trying to look at this thing as realistically, and also how do you insulate the team in case that player doesn't come back? And in the case of the 49ers, they've done that with Brock Purdy in the sense that, they already had Trey Lance, and he's coming back from an injury of his own, that lower leg and ankle disruption, but he's cleared. But they went out and they got Sam Darnold, and they went out this week and got Brandon Allen, who was the number 2 quarterback for the past 3 seasons behind Joe Burrow with the Cincinnati Bengals. So they certainly want Brock Purdy. They consider him their presumptive starting quarterback. But they've also behind the scenes gone and gotten, basically 3 guys in the offseason program right now who are, depending on, relatively speaking, they're capable NFL quarterbacks.
Yeah, we talked about that at Super Bowl. The 49ers, John Lynch is not dumb. They're going to go get somebody. They need somebody just even for a camp arm, but they're going to get someone who can take snaps. Now, it turned out it's not Kyle Shanahan. Of course, it's not the sexy Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, but these are NFL quarterbacks that can take snaps. So let's go through the other quarterbacks. And Trey Lance, is he really 100%? Look, at the Super Bowl, I felt a little bit uneasy talking about it, but I saw him come down from some media stages and he was clearly limping on that ankle. Mm-hmm. Is he really 100% now?
I think when you saw him, he was just a couple weeks removed from having hardware removed from his ankle. And so he had that follow-up, procedure to remove that. Is he 100%? I mean, I certainly can't say that. I haven't seen him on the practice field yet. Right now it's phase 2 of their offseason program. And so phase 3 will be when they get on the field and they go through OTAs. But he's been cleared to do everything, and of course, in the offseason program right now, the speed with which they run plays on the practice field is basically walk-through speed. So, they're not asking him to get out there and run around. And I would suspect that during the OTAs, it'll be very much focused on, plays from the pocket, reading the defense, distributing the football. So I don't know that we're going to see him running around, but he's been cleared to do everything. So, and that's the big, he's been in the league 2 seasons now. And a year ago, he was the number 1 guy. He was the number 1 guy, no questions asked. And the team was trying to trade Jimmy Garoppolo. The trade for Garoppolo didn't materialize. Garoppolo came back to the team, but they were all in on Trey Lance, and they expected to have some really good answers on Trey Lance through the course of the season. Of course, that never happened. Week 2, he gets injured. We haven't seen him on the field since. And so I would say that the bigger questions in my mind about Trey Lance right now aren't physically as far as how is he health-wise. It's just, can he do it? Because we haven't seen him do it. He hasn't played a lot of football, and that goes back to his college days. He only played 1 full season as a starter, really only 1 season of college football. And now he's been in the NFL for 2 seasons, and he's only played in 4 games or started 4 games. So to me, the bigger questions about Lance are just, how is he? Can he function as an NFL starting quarterback?
Well, going back for a split second to Brock Purdy, since you bring up this point about games, Brock Purdy certainly played in college. Brock Purdy has, how many games has he started in the NFL now?
Let's see, what is it? I think 10.
Oh, it's a little more than I thought. But
or 11 games, because
okay.
I think he started 8 in the regular season.
But he's still a rookie, right? He hasn't started 17 or 16 games or whatever. How much is there worry in the Bay Area about lack of practice and reps and development for a young quarterback. I mean, this isn't just add water, Tom Brady, and you're ready to go week one. What about the lack of practice time and snaps and development to the next level?
Absolutely. That's, and I, at the NFL annual meeting in Phoenix, John Lynch said, that he's the leader in the clubhouse. He showed enough to be the starter. And, I asked Kyle Shanahan about, the idea of, it's relatively a short sample size. I mean, he played very well. There's no question about it. But what made them think that in just that short sample size, he wasn't just a flash in the pan, or teams won't be able to adjust to him and take stuff away. And they felt like everything that he showed, and it wasn't just on game days, it was just how he approached his job, the questions he asked during the week. I think also a big thing with Kyle Shanahan is he can tell you, he will tell the offense, he will tell the quarterback, in this down and distance, this team is going to show us this defense. And if we run this play, this is going to be open. And whereas maybe in the past, the quarterback wasn't always, not a high percentage of making that play happen, with Brock Purdy, it was automatic. And so it's stuff like that really endeared Brock Purdy to Kyle Shanahan. And so they believe, and what they say, what they saw last season was stuff that was repeatable, not stuff that was just like, whoa, where did that come from? He had some of those plays too, those off schedule plays where he buys some time, keep his eyes downfield, and make plays to receivers who, in some cases weren't even in the progression. So they just think that he has what it takes, and his calmness, his cool under pressure, his poise, his pocket awareness, and also, he's an underrated thrower. I think he's never going to jump out at you as this tremendous thrower, but underrated. However, as we talked about up to this point, what's he going to be like this year when he's coming off that injury? But certainly it is a concern that he's not able to go through those full speed reps during the off season. He's getting a lot of mental reps. He's going through the meetings, and he's standing out there on the practice field, and he's standing behind the quarterback, and he's doing his own reads. He just can't physically throw the football right now.
So since you're talking about throwing and a thrower,
I know where this is going, David. I know where this is going.
I know you knew this coming. Let's chat about potentially the greatest thrower of the football in San Francisco 49ers history, Sam Darnold.
Yeah. So the point I was trying to make is that, when you think of Sam Darnold, you think of a guy who can throw the football, flat out throw the football. He hasn't been an above average NFL quarterback. I don't know if he has even been an average NFL quarterback. But he has that one trait. It's the trait that got him drafted number 3 overall. And, when you talk about quarterbacks in NFL history or 49ers history, the first trait that comes to mind with Joe Montana, with Steve Young, it wasn't necessarily, oh, he's a great thrower. I mean, I could list a dozen things with Joe Montana that made him a great quarterback. I could list, an equal number of things about Steve Young that made him a great quarterback. No one would ever label those guys as throwers. I would label Sam Darnold as a thrower, because I don't think that his potential has even surfaced. And maybe he maybe all those other things, all those intangibles, or those like kind of intrinsic things that a quarterback must have, maybe he just simply doesn't possess them. But as far as arm talent, I don't know that you can poke many holes in Sam Darnold as far as the ability from, again, a on-schedule play in the pocket, clean pocket, being able to deliver the football. In fact, like Frank Gore, I was talking to him not too long ago, and he said that Sam Darnold will shock you. He will surprise you in 7-on-7. He'll surprise you in training camp, in the offseason program. because he's a very impressive thrower of the football. But in order for him to put himself in that conversation as a week one starter, assuming Brock Purdy isn't ready, he has to be a lot more than a thrower. He has to understand Kyle Shanahan's system and be able to make the right throw at the right time.
Yeah, and to that point, essentially what you're saying is it's the difference between a guy who has a 101-mile-an-hour fastball, but can he pitch, right?
Yeah,
And that's
and I bet you if you talk to some of the great throwers of the football, when you just boil it down to, I mean, like Jeff George. Jeff George was a tremendous thrower of the football, but on any top 100 list of NFL quarterbacks, he's not on it. And so that was the point I was trying to make as far as
and I got it. I was just giving you some
no,
some fun and games
trust me,
over that.
Dr. Chow, I've gotten a lot of blowback from that.
It's so funny, like it happens to me all the time, Matt. Like I'll say, unfortunately, ankle fracture, and the team will say fibula. Oh, you're wrong. It's not the fibula. Oh, come on. I mean, it's whatever. I mean, it's fine. Now, with that, the throwing thing, I did have, this ties back to Brock Purdy. And this is another piece of good news for Tommy John ligament on Brock Purdy. I've asked informally a number of NFL quarterbacks, Rich Gannon, Jim Miller, the Sirius show that I do, etc. What percentage, if a quarterback makes 40 throws in a game, look, if a pitcher for the Giants makes 80 pitches, the vast majority are near max effort. Not max effort, but near max effort. What number of NFL throws, if a quarterback throws 40 times in a game, is a near max effort throw? The answer I've gotten is about 10%, no more than 15.
Huh. So
this is where you say what you're saying about Montana and Young. It's playing the position. It's not throwing on a dime. Like right. When I was with the Chargers, we played against Jay Cutler. He had a great arm, but that almost led him to rely on the arm and thread the needle, which gave him smaller margins of error versus a Tom Brady that throws it on time to the right spot, or Drew Brees and Yak. They don't have the strongest arms in the world. And I think that's what you're talking about. But that's actually what bodes well for Brock Purdy. You're not looking at 40 max effort throws when he returns. It's just a handful at best in a given game.
And his game is predicated as, Montana and Young, and again, gosh, now I mentioned him in the same sentence as those guys, so people are going to come down on me. But it's about anticipation, it's about timing, it's all those things. And when you just brought that up about the max throws, the only throw I can think of that's really a max throw is like that 22-yard out. And it's a sideline throw where you have to put it on a line because you have a defensive back breaking and, it has his eyes on an interception. I mean, even a go route, you're putting air under the football. And so it's not a max throw because you're lofty. And even though it might travel 40, 45 yards in the air, it's still a throw that you're using some touch. You're allowing the guy to run under it. But it's those deep outs, those on the outside the numbers throws where you have to drill it in there, that I can think of, that those are the max throws that a quarterback must make. And also, right. But it also isn't just the mere mechanics of throwing a football.
Completely different. Completely different. The mound makes a big difference, and yes,
that surprises me, because you think that the mound would be designed to take stress off the arm.
Well, if you look at baseball pitchers, they all have big, strong legs. You pitch with your legs, and you translate that force all the way up through the slingshot of your back, your shoulder, your elbow, etc. Whereas quarterbacks, yes, you need footwork, throw, on time, on balance, etc. But you're not leaping and pushing into throws in football. So it's a different arm mechanic that happens.
And I'm just thinking too, a baseball pitcher is not influenced at all from outside forces. He can repeat the same thing over and over and over, whereas a quarterback is, often throwing from different arm angles, from different platforms.
That's where it's harder to throw be a quarterback versus a pitcher. It's not a static platform.
Right.
So
But
the
doesn't it
actual
also,
throws are harder for a pitcher, but because of instantaneous changes in arm angle or something that happens dropping down and changing from what you're supposed to do, that's what makes quarterbacking and throwing harder than pitching. But overall, the effort wise and the stress, it's more on pitchers.
But also, Dr. Chow, wouldn't you, if you're throwing in different ways, wouldn't there be less stress because you're not doing the same thing over and over and over again that a baseball pitcher is doing?
Well, there's certainly less stress just because of the number of throws that are not near max effort versus a pitcher. They go 80 or 100, but they threw a lot more pitches in warm up too, and different things, and the repetitive nature and the mound. But
also a quarterback is throwing every single day, and a pitcher takes days off.
Well, maybe in training camp they're throwing every single day. You're right. I mean, depending in the season, most are not. But you're right. But the problem with changing arm angles, and this is what makes Patrick Mahomes so good, and this is why we talked and said, oh, he's going to be fine at the Super Bowl, because he's not a on-axis robot thrower. He can wrong foot throw. He does it all the time when he's healthy and change arm angles. But what makes Mahomes unique is he can do that and still be accurate. Like, your accuracy goes down when you're throwing off axis and different things. So final question on the quarterbacks. What does the addition of Brandon Allen mean? Here's a guy who's been an entrenched number 2 behind Super Bowl type and top teams and a top quarterback. Like, you would imagine if he's leaving to try and be a starter or something. Coming to the 49ers, does he even have a path to be number 2? Why is he coming? Or is there something that I'm missing here?
I know he's represented by the same agent that represents Brock Purdy. So I don't know if we can draw any conclusions into that. But you're right. I mean, when you look at a guy who's been the number 2 quarterback of, an NFL or a Super Bowl caliber team, you would think that his next job would be something similar, right? Kind of not necessarily guaranteed.
Similar or better, right?
Similar or better, yeah. He is 30 years old, so I don't think that there's I don't think there'd be a starting job out there for him. It's interesting. They did guarantee him $200,000, which sounds like a lot of money, and certainly is, but he gets that money. It basically guarantees him, a spot on the practice squad. And it doesn't even necessarily have to be with the 49ers. As long as he gets that money somewhere, the 49ers, that's all part of it. I just think it puts him in a position where maybe if there's another injury in training camp, I think the 49ers what if Trey Lance just simply doesn't pan out and he doesn't perform up to the standards of the team in the offseason program and training camp. I think the 49ers definitely will keep 3 quarterbacks. Now, whether that's 3 on the 53-man or 2 on the 53-man and 1 on the practice squad. So they got to open the season with 3. And I think right now, I would be mildly surprised if they don't keep 3 quarterbacks on the 53-man roster.
Well,
so,
I get it. I can understand why the 49ers would sign Brandon Allen.
But
I'm not sure I understand why Brandon Allen would sign with the 49ers unless there's a piece that we don't know, that Trey Lance is on the way out, or Brock Purdy. He's going to make an opening day roster and have his salary guaranteed because he's a vested veteran, and make a team that way. The agent thing is intriguing between the two. But I just went, on that one. I did not like the pickup. I'm just saying that's an interesting one. What does that tell us?
I would say also, I think he sees a path to be on the 49ers team once the season starts. And I think what's the worst case scenario for Brandon Allen is that he comes to the 49ers. He learns, from Kyle Shanahan and from Brian Greasy. He gets a lot of offseason reps. And if he gets some bad news, during training camp or at the end of training camp, now there are so many teams running some variation of that Shanahan system that it enables him to be a plug and play kind of guy somewhere else, wherever that is. It could be with, or whatever, the Rams, it could be with the Jets, I guess it could be with the Dolphins, it could be with the Houston Texans, it could be with any number of teams that run that system back in Cincinnati. So I think he felt like there's not a solid 100% number 2 job out there for him. So where can he go to further his career and maybe get his eyes open to some new ways of doing things and just be a better player, and then let the chips fall where they may, whether that's staying with the 49ers or whether that's opening the doors up for some other teams that maybe have an injury and might have a need at that position.
Yeah, and I would have thought the Rams would have been a better landing spot for him, and you talked about that. Okay, final question. I see they're about ready for me in surgery. Okay. Thank you for taking extra time here. So schedule release day, and we're going to talk about that in the second half of the podcast here. People look at different things, and we'll talk about it. Players look at when the bye week is. Fans look at where I'm going to travel to or the big games. And we'll talk about what coaches look at, what wives and girlfriends look at in the second part. That's the teaser. But what do reporters look at first when you get the schedule release?
I think the things that I will look at is when are those road trips and where are they kind of backing up? And I'm just kind of scanning my feed right now, my Twitter feed, to tell you that, okay, the 49ers have a lot of road games. I mean, Philadelphia, Washington, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, Minnesota, Jacksonville, all those like long trips. And so the first thing I'll look at is which games are back to back. And also, does that open up the possibility of the 49ers staying on the East Coast between 2 East Coast games? So then I'll say, hey, where are you guys staying? And let's start booking that travel right now. They've had a lot.
You're saying fits my answer.
Absolutely.
Everyone looks at different things, what affects their life more. Look, I'll let you in a secret. Wives and girlfriends look at if you're playing on Thanksgiving or Christmas, what holidays are you playing? That's the first thing they look at.
And you know what? This is a season with some Christmas games. I believe there's 3 Christmas games this year. So obviously that'll be something I look at too. You won't get me in trouble, Dr. Chow.
No, and they've already released the international schedule, and pretty clearly Jacksonville is going to play week 4, stay in London, and play week 5. Which actually opens up the door slowly for potential London expansion, this, that, the other, in terms of travel. But that's a different subject. Matt, thank you so much. And we went overtime with you.
Yeah, just quickly, the 49ers have done this thing of staying on the East Coast. They've stayed at the Greenbrier in West Virginia like 3 years. They did Youngstown trips because of the Barlow York connection there. They did 1 year where they played Baltimore and then they played New Orleans the next week, and they stayed at IMG in Bradenton, Florida. So that's kind of like a kind of a little training camp getaway for a team during the season. So with that many East Coast games, I would fully expect them to try to do the same thing, to cut down on the travel, increase recovery time, and come back so that second game of a East Coast trip, they could be fresh and play good football, give them chance of playing better football than they would if they travel all the way back to California and then return and go all the way back.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about this in the second half too. I'm running short here, but in my experience with the Chargers and look, West Coast teams have a harder time flying 2 games. East Coast teams have a harder time flying home because you finish up a West Coast game, you don't get home till 3 a.m. sometimes, and that's very hard. West Coast, it's about flying out there, and to me, it's a philosophical thing. Look, would you rather like nowadays, it's charters. You're not changing planes. There really aren't delays. Yeah, it's a long flight. Would you rather take that extra flight, or would you rather spend 7 extra days in a or 6 extra days in a hotel room, 5 extra days in a hotel room? That takes it out of you too, versus sleeping in your own bed. Now, some people with little kids would say, no, that hotel room helps me, right? And some would say the opposite, right? But that's sort of the intriguing balance that you play in terms of staying an extra week somewhere, because not everyone loves that hotel room, sleep and routine. It changes things. Matt, anything else you want to say before we sign off and take a break before
No,
part
I
two?
just want to say thank you for everything you've done for me through the years and appearing on my podcast, 49ers Talk. And it's been a pleasure to talk the injuries and the kind of the state of the 49ers, because I tell you what, for several years, I've been calling the 49ers the most fascinating team in football because of their quarterback situation. And I don't think that's just kind of a provincial view of this. I think they really have been fascinating to follow from that standpoint of, the whole Jimmy Garoppolo thing, the Trey Lance thing, and everything that was going on. And this year might be even more fascinating than the previous 3 years. And Jimmy Garoppolo's in Las Vegas, so we don't have him to talk about anymore when it comes to the 49er quarterbacks. But there's plenty to talk about. They've really built that roster around the idea of having a quarterback room where not a lot of money is invested. So that enabled them to go out and get a Javon Hargrave and keep the roster together. So it's a fascinating team to cover. And this offseason is going to continue to be fascinating. And the first weeks of the regular season will be fascinating to watch it unfold.
And, the final thing I'd say, everyone knows Kyle Shanahan's great in the whole deal, but I got to say, even though I liked and thought John Lynch, very smart guy, Stanford guy, the whole thing, I had my worries about going from the broadcast booth to being a GM. But I think the smartest thing he did was he realized he didn't know all the tricks of the trade as a GM. And he sort of was a leader, not a dictator of policies. And like he would gather the information from his assistants and whatever. And he's been great as a GM, I think. Because he listens instead of just saying, I know what's going on. And he comes in from another world and does it. And I think he's done a great job there. And that's part of their success, obviously.
Yeah, I think they both, I think Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch have both surrounded themselves with really good people. And all you have to do is look to see all the personnel people, scouts, executives who have gone on to general manager jobs elsewhere. And also on Kyle Shanahan's staff, all the coordinators and assistant coaches who have gone on to other jobs and head coaching opportunities elsewhere. So it's kind of interesting that, when the 49ers made those hires of Lynch and Shanahan back in January of 2017, 49ers probably had the worst roster in all of football. And now, these two guys who did not have experience as a head coach, did not have any experience as a general manager, are now developing other head coaches and other general managers. So it's been remarkable to see the transformation of the organization from maybe it was so dysfunctional in the years before Shanahan and Lynch. And now they've been in the NFC Championship game through the past 4 seasons. But Dr. Chow, as in San Francisco, if you're not hoisting a Lombardi at the end of the season, it doesn't matter.
No, I get it. But Shanahan and Lynch's tree is, currently is greater than, the Belichick tree and a lot of different trees. And so kudos to them. And thank you, Matt. We'll chat again. I really appreciate the time and the extra time in the early morning hour for this, and fun as always. Hang on tight here, and we'll be back for the second part of the Pro Football Doc Sports Injury Central podcast. All right, welcome back to the second part of the Sports Injury Central Pro Football Doc podcast. Matt Maiocco was pretty good there. Now we've got Jacob and Taylor back, and back at the office studios, done with surgery for the morning there. What do you guys think? What was your big take on?
Yeah, I was glad that he clarified his Sam Darnold comments. I was a little confused on that to start. Yeah, he got put through the ringer for that one. So
yeah,
I get what he's saying. He went 3 overall. People forget Sam Darnold went 3 overall. So
there's glimpses.
There's talent there.
Well, this is what I always said. You hear me a lot of times. Would I want a guy with a strong arm or an accurate arm or better decision making? It's decision making. That's what makes the quarterback.
Yes, exactly.
You can't be inaccurate with the football. But this is what I always saw, and I was referring to it. The big armed guys can rely on their big arm to make completions, but those then ultimately turn out to be tight window throws. And whether it's the elements or whether it's a tip ball or whether it's your hit when you throw, those turn into picks, right? Because you just can't always be like that.
If you're throwing in tight windows in college, like you said, it doesn't translate too much in the NFL, right?
The windows only get tighter, right? If you, I mean, I don't do film study per se, but go look at Tom Brady's throws. He's placing them where they need to be. He's not firing him to a tight window. Rarely. Yeah. I don't know. That's just the way that I look at it. And I've always said that about running quarterbacks too. If you run out of necessity, 3rd and 8, you need to get the first down. I think you can make it. If you run as part of your offense,
it becomes,
it's a lot higher chance that you're going to get hurt. If you're making tight window throws on that 1 4th quarter occasion because you have to and nothing else is there and it's 3rd down or 4th down, I think you can sustain that and get away with it. If you're doing that routinely in the 1st quarter, it's only a matter of time before the turnover. So, I mean, being a thrower and a great arm is only one component. But I am really curious about Brandon Allen. Did he fall out of favor? He's a longtime number 2 guy behind Joe Burrow. Why would you leave that unless they didn't want him anymore? Unless you're going to look, Charlie Whitehurst was the longtime backup for Phillip Rivers.
Mm-hmm.
People would argue that's the best job in football. He could have been employed another 10 years. But you know what? After a while, he said, look, I want my chance to start. He went to Seattle, didn't do much, and then sort of bounced around and then out.
Mm-hmm.
Why would Brandon Allen leave? I don't know. I mean, I didn't know about the agent connection. Maybe that seems a little intriguing. I don't know what that means. But
it sounds like Purdy might not make the opening roster.
Well, he's gone from a Super Bowl caliber team, what seemed to be a solid backup job, to a team without much of a guarantee, not a big payday, who ostensibly have 4 quarterbacks on their roster, and he's odd man out in musical chairs right now. Maybe that'll change, but I don't know yet. That was an interesting signing for me.
But he's not just a camp arm, like you said. He's a little bit more than a camp arm. He's been playing enough, and he started when Burrow had the ACL tear. Remember, he started games multiple times.
Well, I always say when something doesn't make sense from the outside, we just don't know the whole story.
Correct.
Now, is the whole story, no conspiracy theory, but is the whole story they know there's a chance to start a little bit because Brock Purdy isn't necessarily ready because it's the agent? That's a conspiracy theory. Or is he not wanted in other places anymore, and this is the best that he can do? I mean, or what is it? There's something here.
Mm-hmm.
Or the 49ers whispered to him, don't you worry, we're trading Trey Lance, you'll be on the roster spot. You know, I don't know, right? Those are just throwing darts out there. They're just throwing darts. So, but that one opened my eyes a little bit, like, interesting.
Yeah,
interesting.
I like that Maiocco was already looking to book his hotel for long road trips too on the East Coast.
All right, well let's get to
dive
this.
on that.
We've talked about this before a little bit. Okay, well, let me ask you. You're a 49ers guy. You're I almost said Oakland Raiders guy.
It's close enough.
He followed him to Vegas.
Yeah. When the schedule, there's been a trickle so far of the schedule release, international games, this, that, the other. And Black Friday game. It's interesting. That
it's a weird choice. Yeah, sorry.
It's okay. I'll leave it alone.
I will.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it's a traditional name. It's not a big deal. But anyways, what do you look for when the schedule's released? Well, like, you know all the opponents already, so that's not a big thing. But what's the first thing you look for?
I already got what I need to know. Three games on Christmas, some on New Year's Eve.
So you become a generalist.
I gotta start.
See,
I'm
Taylor,
looking at bye weeks and like strength of schedule, which is already known already. But I'm looking at the bye weeks because I need to know which fantasy players are all grouped up in the same bye weeks.
This proves my theory, and Matt Maiocco proved it too, and you guys just proved it, and I'll prove it for what I look at too. It's not bad, but there's always some what's in it for me selfishness.
Absolutely,
when you look at it.
Right.
So Matt Maiocco said, well, they're probably going to stay on the East Coast, and I need to figure out my hotel room because I don't want to get shut out. So that's
Smart
his first
move.
thing.
Yeah.
And because obviously he's going to stay with the team the whole week, right? That'll be a week-long road trip, family, whatever. So I get that. Jacob went Christmas and Thanksgiving Day after. He's like,
got to lay the groundwork with the significant other. So
that's what my mom's worried about.
he's got to lay the groundwork for
Yeah.
the significant other that he's going to be watching football games and or in the office in the war room or what have you. Lay the groundwork. I get that. Taylor, because he's Mr. Fantasy crazy, he's looking at bye weeks because he's trying to figure out the bye weeks of all the teams of who to draft and who to avoid. Now, here's what I've always said historically. So what do players look at? Players look at the bye week.
Vacation.
Thursday
Is
game.
it too early,
Yeah,
too late?
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Secondary Thursday game.
Yep.
But the bye week's the first thing the
It's
players
huge,
look at. What do coaches look at?
Tough opponents back to back.
I think divisional games.
Divisional games, yeah.
Because those are the ones that matter.
You got to win the division
Yep.
if you're going somewhere.
Right.
What do GMs and front office look at?
Not sure.
I think they look at stretches, like of 3 games in 11-day stretch and this, that, the other.
Because there's stats. There's lots of stats for that. Yeah, like when you.
I think they look at that.
I mean, primetime games again, maybe.
No, that's fans.
Oh, that's fans.
They don't care.
PR
Fan-
department.
Fans look at how many primetime games you get.
Because that's the first thing you see on Twitter. Why are the Kansas City Chiefs 9 games?
Fans look
Yep.
for primetime games first.
Absolutely. Yep.
How many Sunday night, Monday night?
Yep.
What's the Thursday? What did we get? That's what fans look at.
Jets will finally get one, probably. So
They did already. They got
yeah.
They got
Black
Black Friday.
Friday.
Yeah. Yes.
Congrats.
Yes.
and the interesting thing is
Don't open that door.
it's during the day.
Yeah. It's when we're shopping. I am.
I don't know. Most people are online, but whatever.
Yeah.
I would think you'd want it at night.
Yeah.
Because you have nothing going on that day. Why would you have it in the morning?
I mean, the day after Thanksgiving, you've got your Thanksgiving Day, post-Thanksgiving Day football game. This, I don't know. Who knows?
people don't shop in the middle of the night anymore, right? Like they won't be tired to watch the game. They might. They might. Right?
I don't know. But whatever. I'm sure the NFL has done their homework in knowing what it is and what have you. So the other thing fans occasionally look at, I think, is if you're a Packers fan, you look at what time of year are the road trips to different places because maybe we're going to go somewhere or you're not in Green Bay. When do we go to see the Packers and where this year?
You're forgetting about yourself too. What did your side of the stuff look for?
Okay. Well, I'll tell you about mine.
I know you're building up. I'm sorry. Yeah, I just like to.
Wives and girlfriends. We mentioned it.
Yeah.
Christmas, Thanksgiving,
Vacations, all the holidays. Yep.
My birthday, what conflicts, this, that, the logistics of family, home life, etc. That's a factor. Thanksgiving, Christmas. That's the first thing they look at. What are the categories?
They care about weekday games so much. Like, I got to go to the Thursday. Like
for me, the first thing I looked at is the 3-day road trips because that affected my practice. I've got this private practice. If we play at home, I don't care. I don't care if it's Sunday night or Sunday. I don't even care if it's Saturday. We're playing at home. I don't even care that much if it's Thursday. I might have to end clinic early that day. But I care. Next time we get a player on, you can ask him that I was with, who's the last person on the bus? It was pretty much always me. Because I was coming from surgery clinic. I got to rush it. Now I also made it. The bus waits for nobody. You can't be late. But
they waited for you.
Everyone is pretty much there on the bus, like probably half an hour, 20 minutes, 15 minutes. Inside 10 minutes, there aren't 10 people that come on. I was always one of them.
Did you miss the bus before ever? Never?
I missed the bus one time in my life.
Okay. No, that's a good number. That's a good number. Yeah.
And and it was with I'm resourceful. I'll tell the story. Actually, you know what? We should get Tim Dwight on the podcast.
There you go.
I missed it. I was sitting down in Miami at breakfast, and usually sometimes I take the first bus because I'm bored of this, that, the other, but somehow I was going to take the third bus. There wasn't any medical thing.
That's the last bus, the third bus. Okay.
And security's in the breakfast room. Everyone, they clear. I'm sitting talking to Tim Dwight, player, and yeah, should we go? Yeah, we got a few more minutes. Okay. Should we go? Finally says, oh, let's go. Okay. I mean, there's security on every bus, this, that, the other. They take roll. They ain't going to worry if I'm not on the bus. But one of your starting wide receivers at the time.
That's a big deal.
Bus,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And so I go, we got there and there's no bus. It's like, what happened? He's like, they left us. And he's trying to figure out how to, I'm like, that's a new one. I mean, I thought I was fine because I'm sitting with him. I mean,
you're not gonna leave Tim. Yeah.
And so actually, I got us a ride there because
you're more resourceful than Tim Dwight.
I'm pretty resourceful.
Yeah.
We can get when Tim comes on. There's some
Yeah.
funny stories from Tim that we should tell. He's a pretty funny guy too.
My dad he thinks he played like him in school. He was like fast and could catch a little bit. He wasn't.
There's actually some pretty good medical stories related to Tim Dwight. We'll have to get
put him
on
on the list. Yeah.
Anyways, we called him Delta Bob. He's our charter guy with Delta.
Nice.
And he often has to return a minivan that the team uses or this, that, the other. I said, Bob, we got to get, okay. He took us. And the hardest part was like getting to the right area, right? Because security blocks you off.
Bus
and
has no problems.
Yeah, the buses has a police escort. Yeah. And,
you had a prized commodity with you, though. They should be ushering you through a little bit, right?
Maybe, but A, we were in Miami.
Okay.
B, no offense to my boy Tim, he looks like every other dude out there.
Like a chemistry teacher or something.
I mean, I don't know about chemistry teacher, but he does not look like a football player as he's sitting in the car, And so, although having him in the car, that is a punchline that we'll talk about and recount some of the medical stories. But
for sure,
that's the only time I missed the bus. Otherwise, so anyways,
off track. I'm sorry.
Off track.
Yep.
I always looked for the 3-day travel games or the off kilter. Like a Thursday away game kills you. That means you got to stop your practice Wednesday, and there's
reshuffle everything.
The off kilter games. That's kind of what I looked for. So, anyways, everyone looks for different things, which is all good, I guess.
Now looking forward to that coming out. Little stuff's leaking out in mini camp, like Isaiah Pacheco, the labrum and thumb surgeries, and so we're tracking all that on Insights.
Did you see Facebook? Donna Kelsey, Travis and Jason's mom, she revealed the international games before anybody else did, so that was cool. Sometimes you gotta look through Facebook to find.
Wow.
She's a newsbreaker.
Yes, yeah.
So much for Tyreek Hill looking for the return.
You saw that? Yeah. I'd be so mad if I was him. Because he was promoting that earlier in the off season too. But
well, the most interesting thing I saw is that Jacksonville has 2 games.
Yeah, back to back. What is that?
London Jaguars.
They are the London team, though, Doc.
First of all, that means they're going to stay there all week.
Yeah.
Second of all, I've said this for a while.
Yeah.
In terms of flight distances and time zones, it's not unfeasible to have a London team. What is hard is players and lifestyle, and of course, you can figure out taxes and
for sure
international currency. But I mean, do the flight times. New York to London is like basically no different than New York to LA in terms of flight time.
Right.
Yeah.
It might even be shorter.
It might be shorter, I think. A little bit, yeah.
Someone can look that up, but it's not that materially different. It's certainly shorter than Miami to Seattle or Seattle to Miami.
Across, yeah.
So one of these days, I mean, you could see, look, is it that big of a stretch to now do 4 games in London for Jacksonville? Games 4 and 5 and games 10 and 11?
Like next year they give them 4. Next year they give them 8.
It's not, now you're halfway there.
Yeah, as I said.
Kind of thing. So anyways, That was the most intriguing thing. But I always found it interesting when everyone looked at schedule release time. Everyone looked at something a little different. The analysts is who's got the favorite schedule, who got screwed, who, this, that, the
quarterback
other.
matchups, whatever it is.
Yeah. And then, of course, the TV bidding for the games this year will be interesting too.
Yeah.
But you brought up a point about Pacheco and others. I promise you, there are multiple surgeries on every NFL team that we don't know about yet, that hasn't been announced because there's no mandatory reporting in the off season. So how they come up is on social media, or the GM speaks on it, or head coach speaks on it as they go to minicamp, or when there's now open practices for minicamp or something, they go, well, why is that guy in a sling, or where's that guy? It's the trickle, and we'll monitor that. But as I always said, there are way more, 2 or 3 times, sometimes more surgeries after the season than during.
Right.
So we'll unpack all that for everybody.
And it doesn't mean surgery happened right before minicamp or
no. It's just since the last time they talked at the end of the season.
It's an hour. It's an hour extra, just to go back to the flight times. London, hour extra. That's it. I would add that to a flight. Not gonna make a difference, right?
Just time zone stuff you have to contend
just to go back to what you're saying. Yeah, that it is feasible.
Yeah. Taylor's team's doing pretty well, and Bede's back, looking active.
He looked better the last game.
Yeah.
Now, did he look better because he got rid of the brace? The sleeve's not doing a lot. Or does he look better because he no longer needs the brace? Chicken or the egg?
I think he needs the brace. I think the only thing that looks different is that he's cutting to the net more. So like right before he was a black hole. You give it to him after he'd shoot a jump shot, and if you missed it, play's done, right? But now looks like there's more movement on offense. He's passing more. So step-by-step process, like you said, he's not 100%, right? But
we're right around the time that the PRP is supposed to be kicking in, right?
Yeah,
that's
probably
kind of right at the 2 week mark.
Yeah. So yeah, he's looking better. No
does
question.
That PRP last the entire playoffs, or would he need one if they go further?
Should last.
Okay.
Should last. Tyler Hero should be coming back if Miami gets the Eastern Conference Finals. That's what we always said.
Yeah.
I remember us never thinking that was going to be a possibility because I was either playing number 1 seed or not.
Like, they lose him against the Bucks. Everyone just wrote it off. So
I mean, if you look at Sick Insights in the articles, I think we said he can come back if Miami goes deep.
And they're deep.
Yeah, that was the hard part.
Yeah,
Miami going deep.
Yeah.
It wasn't him beating the timeline. It was Miami beating anybody.
Yeah,
the way they looked at the start of the playoffs. So.
Absolutely.
No chance for Chris Paul in Game 6. They're down 3-2. Not even 10 minutes off the bench.
They do need him, so they're gonna probably give some false stuff out, like, he's gonna try. But
he already said that. I'm gonna try.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, I'm sure he's gonna try, but I don't see him. Well, we'll have to look at it. And then no way he'll be 100% if he does, and we'll have to figure out how to play it. Good job taking Durant and the over on assist. Right, the ball's going to go through him, so he's going to come up with a couple more assists. They lost by a bunch.
He had 1 assist in the first quarter, and I kind of stop watching the games. I get upset when our bets don't do good, personally. So and then I went back to the game. I know 4 quarters is right. I don't know what happened, but yes.
I want to guarantee he got 4 or 5 in garbage time too.
Yeah.
Well,
fourth quarter was.
What it's called is they know when the rubber meets the road, Durant's going to shoot the ball, and so they start to slough off, double, triple team him, and now here come assists.
Yep.
Right? I mean, late assists
for sure. Kicking out the threes. They're desperate too to come back in the game, right? So
just game script flow kind of deal. I don't know about you. I'm kind of disappointed that Jokic and Matt, this should be a controversy. This be a controversy.
It's too nice now. It should be drawn out a little longer. No, you're right.
I thought it was funny. Yeah. I thought it was funny all along. I mean.
No, you were calling on the phone and you're like, it'd be funny, if he didn't go to the game or they didn't let him go to the game. It would be really awesome if the first thing they said, it was not allowed to go to the game. Matt, can't say his name. Sorry, but yeah.
I don't know. I think if anything, Jokic saved his life because by doing that pregame, the fans probably got off of him.
Yeah, they did.
If he was really going to sit there courtside, he might have gotten a lot of grief all game.
No, you're right.
Extra security and the whole. Look, I don't blame him. If you're not cheating, you're not trying. He clearly held on to the ball to help the Suns. He played basketball. He knew what it was.
Exactly. Yep.
Right.
Yeah,
and that Jokic push was Like if it were another NBA player, they wouldn't even have turned around. But
Right.
I don't know. I got away with my wardrobe comments though. No one really got on me too much.
No one cared about the plumber crack.
I mean, look, I'm not one to talk, okay, but I never played basketball for Michigan State, and I'm not in the greatest of shape. This, that, the other. He looks so small, and
Sydney, Australia says you're a pretty good athlete.
He looks
he does
so
very
small.
Yep.
So I mean,
most people would.
if you would have put up there, this guy was with the Michigan State basketball team as a walk-on player or as a team manager. What's the Twitter poll say?
He's a team manager. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm just saying. I'm not denigrating his abilities or whatever. And the guy has 7 billion reasons why he can look how he wants to look. But
I just think these owners they think they're part of the team. Like they buy the team and they're like, I'm on the team.
I feel like I would be the same way.
Yeah.
Like
I can't blame him.
Steve Ballmer, like the Clippers, he's very like,
Mark Cuban.
if you're
Mark
spending
Cuban's
$1 billion
like, put me in
on a
for-
team, like I kind of think like I'm sixth person on the court. A little bit.
Money buys almost everything.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. What else we got today?
Baseball. I want to go to Bryce Harper. He's been doing well since coming back, but it wasn't the batting ever, right?
Yeah. We had a fight on this.
Yeah.
What is his 6 score? I was like, put in the 90s. He's fine hitting, but he's not playing defense. But no one expects him to play defense. Everyone's just worried about his hitting.
No, you said from
His
a pure
hitting's fine.
standpoint, you're right, but like probably wrong overall. Right? You're probably right.
I mean, no one's taking over under on putouts. Okay,
Put that up there. Put it up there.
I mean, he's whatever. What else? I'm sure some Houston fans hate us again.
Yeah,
throwing out the.
You stopped getting on bad news.
Do I need to say it?
They're in better shape than the Braves, though. The Braves are dropping people left and right. I was talking about that Taylor this morning. They got
Kyle Wright
everyone on IL.
Kyle Wright with the right shoulder for the second time in less than 2 months.
Max Fried.
Max Fried.
Forearm tightness.
You have Ian Anderson, who's out for the year with a Tommy John. Then Soroka, who's been had 2 Achilles tears in the last couple of years, and he's 5 ERA in minor leagues. So they're desperate.
Yeah, maybe
Acuna's doing well though.
Maybe Major League Baseball needs load management.
Remember, it doesn't work, Doc. Remember?
No, they already have it.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, rest days. Yeah.
All right. Anything else here?
Beast of the week. I got the hockey guy that took a puck to the face.
They scored after though, so I'd be very upset because he watched that happen. Maybe not a clear view of it.
What about the pitcher that the ball off his head?
Yeah, walking off after that.
Yarbrough.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or maybe the catcher that stayed with the play and put the guy.
He threw the guy out because it went to the vet. He said it trickled to the catcher, and he threw him out. After.
I mean, he's like, I'm gonna get this eye out before I check out my pitcher here. I mean,
he didn't fall down though, which is props to Yarbrough. He was able to walk off, but he was holding his head. Yeah.
I don't know the latest, but I think he's gonna be okay.
Yeah,
and
we'll detail.
There's immediate IL stint. They just haven't said obviously when he will return, but we think that's better news than not, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think he's going to return right off.
What was the pitcher you said? Brandon McCarthy. He had immediate surgery after getting hit, and this didn't happen to.
He's got the nasty horseshoe scar, so at least Yarbrough avoided that.
So that's already better news, like you said. Yeah.
Yeah, the thing you worry about most is some sort of intracranial bleed, and as long as you don't have that,
and you were worried a little bit, right? Because he was bleeding or something coming out of the nose.
Vision problem is number 2.
Yeah.
Right.
And then the rest of it, as nasty as it looks, would work out. That's why I don't know, the softball guys got masks on, and the Pinto little baseball players have masks.
They do. Everybody has masks. Yeah.
Who knows? The hockey players don't, though.
No, they're too crazy.
Yeah,
I can't believe they didn't play with them. It's crazy.
They didn't play with helmets.
That's what I'm saying.
Were you old enough to see that?
Yes. I used to have season tickets with Flyers. I used to meet all those old guys, and they don't seem very.
With it anymore.
Yeah. Now, the goalie I met, he actually his career ended because he was playing goalie without a mask, and he took a puck to the eye, and the eyesight was damaged. So crazy.
That's crazy.
That's crazy. Yeah, that's nuts. This is vulcanized rubber, like
goalie without a mask.
Yep. Crazy.
He's trusting his reaction time.
He was good.
Is crazy.
Yep.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
Well, the problem is, sure, if you see the puck, yeah, it's not going to hit you in the face. But when you're screened or when it's tipped, that's where you get all the
Got no
trouble.
shot.
And they screen on purpose. That's part of the game to make sure they can't see. So yeah, you're just last second right there hitting. Yep.
All right. So let's do schedule release and let's see what else happens. And anything else we got today? We'll get Tim Dwight on. We have a good guest on next week.
What about the golf tournament too? I feel like Woodhead and Dave need to do that. We need to fix that up.
Yeah. We got to see. It's summertime coming up.
That's what I'm saying.
Need
Like
the weather to get nice.
I remember Woodhead didn't want to come down because of the winter, right, or something. So he should be able to now.
The six
see.
sponsored
And we that's
match
our
play.
yes, exactly. Yes. Yep.
tournament.
He said he only wants to play at Torrey, right? Woodhead said that he's being
whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, well, remind me.
no, I think that would be
we'll
cool
set it
too. Yeah.
I'll look at setting that up again. Woodhead versus David Bin.
Mm-hmm.
How did Danny do this year? Did he even qualify for anything? Did he?
I think it's coming up.
Oh,
I
still
remember it
coming
was
up?
like, he's going to do it
so
again. He might be.
We might be getting in the way of his serious training.
Yeah.
right now
Or he might
something.
just come in with like a
He could be the
buzzsaw and
tune-up.
just beat him out. Yeah.
All right, sounds good. Sports Injury Central Pro Football Dog Podcast. Lots of fun today, and still always lots of news going on. And
Mini camps, yep, all that stuff.
hit the subscribe button. And as a matter of fact, if you want to know about Bo Jackson and intractable hiccups, it is a real thing. Go to Sports Injury Central, SICScore.com. Thanks.